I'm here to talk about depression. Now, I'm basing a lot of what I talk about on my experience with depression, which has been chronic throughout my life, with my own range of experience, and this may or may not reflect others' experiences. Also, I'll be mostly trying to focus on my depression at its worst. This is an attempt to explain depression and its effects to those who desire to understand depression on a more intimate level. What is depression? Simplest answer I can come up with is the separation or disconnect a person has from their ability to perform effort. So, to start with, I need to define effort. My definition of effort is an expenditure of energy to accomplish some objective. So depression is the inability to expend that energy. You may have it, you just can't use it. Now, I'm going to demonstrate an exercise that'll help step by step lead you into what this experience is like. Step one, first find something that's really heavy. If you're in a classroom, that would be the bag from the person that has all those books and is really brainy and doesn't want to go to their locker. So you reach out, grab the bag off the floor and lift it very slowly. And as you're lifting the bag off the floor, pay attention to the strain on your arm. You have to increase your effort as you're lifting the bag higher and higher. This is important. Once you're certain you can identify this feeling, put the bag down, have a seat somewhere, preferably someplace where you can rest your arms. Step two. Now, after lifting the bag with one arm, you might want to use your other arm for this because you might have a lot of nervous energy running through the arm you use to lift the bag. Now, take your other arm and put it at rest on the desk or the armrest or something else. Now, we're going to do the same exercise only using just your arm. Lift your arm very slowly off the desk. The idea is to lift your arm just high enough so that the skin of your arm is still touching the desk, but the desk is not supporting your arm in any way. Now, as the best as you can, hold your arm at that level. Feel the weight of your arm. Feel the effort it takes. Remember that same effort when you were lifting the heavy object. Once you feel comfortable with being aware of the effort it takes to raise your arm, put it back down. Step three. Now comes the hard part. Rest yourself as comfortably as you can and relax your entire body. Let your muscles settle as much as you can. If you're having a hard time doing this, try remembering to do this the next time you need to wake up for something. Not when you're startled out of sleep and suddenly have this energy to hit your alarm clock. Once your muscles have settled and you're as relaxed as you possibly can, you just need to follow one rule. You are not allowed to put forth any conscious effort. Zip, zero, nada. If your nose scratches or something tickles, too bad. If you're uncomfortable because you've been resting in a particular position for too long, you can't adjust yourself. If an alarm or notification goes off on your phone, you can't reach out and stop it. Just wait, it'll stop on its own, it won't last forever. Physically, this is depression. A depressed person knows very intimately the fact that it takes more muscles to frown than it does to smile. We can feel just how many it takes. However, frowning takes too much effort, and smiles are for happy people. Now, if you want to rouse yourself, you can, while we examine the rest of this situation. When a person is depressed, there is a certain impact on their thought processes. However, having been there myself, I know There are a great number of times I have been physically depressed in this way, but my mind is fully active. I would lay there, unable to move, yet screaming in my mind for myself to get up. I was going to miss work and get fired. I should at least call them, tell them I can't come in. Nope, too much effort. My family's worried about me. Nope, no motivation there. I would beg and plead within my own mind, throw guilt, even give myself little baby steps of encouragement. Just raise your hand, move your feet. Got nothing. Eventually, exhausted in your mind, crying mentally, and sometimes literally in frustration, you do the only thing you can do. You go back to sleep. Half of you hopes you don't ever wake up because you don't want to have to pick up the pieces of your life. Depression like this can strike a person at any time. Some are lucky, if you want to call it that, and are sensitive enough to know when the train is coming and can make preparations while they're being tied to the tracks. Others get no warning like this at all. Like someone with PTSD or epileptic seizures, one moment they're going along just fine, and then BAM! They're down and out. Could be for moments, could be for hours, even days or longer. First emotion that comes with this situation is a horrible sense of betrayal. This is your body, yours. It was working just fine 5 minutes ago. Nowadays, this sense of betrayal is on some level easy to understand if you have a cell phone that's attached to you and suddenly it stops working. These devices are such an integral part of people's lives, it almost becomes an extension of themselves. What follows next is somewhat dependent on how often you've experienced this level of depression. For most, it's a sense of furious outrage. It's not like your hand has been chopped off and you can't use what isn't there to raise a cup off the table. Your hand is right there. You know it's there. It's physically there. There's nothing wrong with it. You hope that your rage can help you burn through whatever this problem is. The trouble is, all that does is expend a lot of mental energy. And nothing physically ever happens because your effort has been cut off. After you realize your mental temper tantrum isn't going to result in the desired outcome, the helplessness of your situation sets in. You're trapped, imprisoned in your own body. You're helpless to the point that even a newborn infant has greater capacity for freedom of expression than you do. Think about that. Newborns are about as helpless as you can possibly get. And now your mind has decided to reduce you to less than that. This naturally leads to terror. Depression is utterly and unspeakably terrifying. You've just been buried alive by your own mind. The trouble is, there's nobody to dig you out. In fact, unless you're around people that understand and can see the signs in you, no one will even realize your situation until they try to get a reaction out of you. And even then, there's nothing they can do to help anyway. Assuming there are mental faculties left to you by now, you realize that time is catching up with your situation. Most of us lead lives that require us to meet a schedule, and now that's being compromised. So let's throw a big heap of worry and compromised self-esteem on top of the pile. Most benevolent religions postulate the idea that each one of us is worthy of love, respect, value, by the very fact that we exist and are alive. It's a valued comfort. But the world we live in, people are valued and tend to value themselves based on their productivity and their autonomy and competence, which are all suddenly now out of reach for you. Now, the building that is your life is starting to crumble around you. Eventually, however long it takes, the storm passes. Those who are optimistic may try to view this as another car crash on the road of life and pick themselves up and keep moving forward. That is, until it happens again, and again, and again, and again. I believe this is where we start to see the variances in different reactions to depression. Everyone handles terror in their own way. Some go into denial, some get angry. Some are so traumatized to the point that they suffer PTSD. Imagine that, PTSD from something that happened in your head. No bombs, no bullets, no one threatening your life. Others, like me after a while, just learn to cling desperately to some rock at the bottom of the ocean floor until the crushing waves go down. One common element is growing desperation to avoid the situation from ever happening again. People, myself included, will stress themselves crazy, trying to find some way of avoiding the terror of helplessness depression brings. This turns into a need for control. Initially, this just could be an OCD-like behavior over their environment, some desire to find some way to predict what seems to be unpredictable. However, when that fails, people move on to that which ironically leads people to the worst illusion of control there is: addictions. Pills, exercise, porn, alcohol, gambling, caffeine, video games, anything that will provide a little extra hit to keep the mind from slipping over the edge and leaving you helpless. It's all worth it, because nothing is worse than being sucked back into the abyss. Finally, when all the controls have failed, exhausted from your personal efforts, numb from being dependent on drugs that should but don't always work, heartbroken over watching all of your efforts end in failure as your depression kicks your butt, at a critical moment, you surrender. You want to die. The biggest irony of deep depression is while you want to commit suicide badly, it still takes effort. So, if there is no opportunity or means, no gun in the house, no bottle of sleeping pills, you are left by default with the only option but to keep laying there and write it out. It is those people who are living with the dread of their next episode, with destroyed self-esteem, or have just come up from the bottom and their life is in shambles again, that I feel run the biggest risk. Why am I still alive? What separates me from those that are dead? Why haven't I committed suicide? Not entirely certain why I'm still alive. I've stood over overpasses, held razor blades, investigated gun shops. I do know the thought of what happens if I fail was a big motivator against killing myself. As much pain as I was in, I didn't want more, I wanted less. Besides, if I did kill myself and I failed, I'd have to live with the shame of the fact that I attempted to kill myself and failed. Before someone can commit suicide, they have to deal with a relationship with hope. Hope, in my personal experience, isn't something that you have to hold on to, it's something that kind of sticks to me, much to my annoyance at times. For me, it would have been an act of will to separate myself from hope. Once separated from hope, suicide not only becomes possible, it becomes reasonable. It becomes a goal, an achievement. Short of drugging someone or tying them up, you cannot stop someone that intends to end their life at this point. So the most critical thing you can do for them is support their hope, a hope that is intimately tied to their value, the value of their existence. For someone who is depressed, it is very hard to justify their existence when they've been rendered useless by it. When I was living on my own, what got me through the seriously depressive days was doing what I could to justify my existence. I played a lot of online games, League of Legends, World of Warcraft, a lot of interaction with other people, and anything that I could do, no matter how minor, to help someone out, to make someone else's day brighter, even if it was inconsequential in the grand scheme of things, helped me justify my own existence. Even if it didn't actually make me feel really any better. While staying to comfort a person who's experienced depression is very sweet, if they are aware inside while they're depressed, they may just get more depressed because they realize their useless state is causing more harm by pulling resources from those who care about them to deal with them. You need to remind these people that while yes, they're not great company right now, their state of depression won't last forever. What they're giving you, both a chance to care for them now and the happiness they'll bring to their life later, is worth the trouble. Do not be afraid of laying on their seemingly fragile shoulders the task that you expect them, come what may, to stay alive, even if it's just till tomorrow, because if they don't believe they're worth it, you do. And even if they think you're crazy, you have to remind them that they're the ones whose thinking may be compromised, not yours. Don't forget to provide reasons. This is very important. A simple, "you're worth it to me," isn't likely to penetrate the dark cloud in their mind. People who are depressed need reasons to justify their existence. Their existence, just because you love them, isn't a sufficient reason. This, of course, is the bottom of the barrel. Depression and thoughts of suicide can just be a low-level hum that reverberates through your mind all day. Constant feelings, constant thoughts. A person can be mostly functional and still be depressed, but like a bad mood you can't shake, it's with you all the time. You can feel like you're dragging yourself along all day, or just slightly less than chipper, or anything in between. Well, this type of depression might be better because the person can function, sort of. This interfering vibe of being depressed prevents you from ever feeling happy. I might have been less suicidally depressed at certain points in my life, but for as long as I can remember, I've always had this undercurrent of depression. Even when I'm laughing, there's still some small trace of self-mocking, acid sarcasm that people may or may not hear. So much of my life, I didn't know what happy was. There were just degrees of depression. Some days I was just less depressed than others. My mantra for life was this: life is pain and living is torture. When I wasn't thinking of suicide, I held this attitude that I would welcome death when it came. I'm doing much better now. If I died tomorrow, I wouldn't welcome it. I'd probably be a little irritated, but I wouldn't be overly upset either. I still have a hard time with the definition of happy. For so long, I've measured my life by this empty hole in my heart, by the chaos in my mind. I don't know how to start to compare it to something more cheerful. There's no for certain contrast. Now, I really hope I haven't made anyone depressed by my talking about depression, because that would be really depressing. However, I hope the people who have listened, who didn't understand what depression is a little bit more enlightened by what I had to share. Thanks.